Greetings and welcome to our daily Devo for the 28th, today, Tuesday, the 28th of November. I'm hoping you got rid of all your leftover turkey already. Today's devotion is entitled Parable of the Shrewd Manager. Parable of the Shrewd Manager. Luke 16, verses 1 through 15. Verse 9 is quoted from our passage here. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. I don't remember the first time I read that, but I remember having read that passage before thinking, well, that sounds like you're playing games. I don't understand, Jesus. Funeral coaches do not come with trailer hitches, and with good reason. Our personal possessions do not transition with us from this life to the next. So how can we best use worldly wealth here? Jesus begins to answer that question by pointing to the Pharisees who loved money. Luke 16:14. The Lord intends for us to love people and use money. The Pharisees had it backwards. They loved money and used people. Interesting. What caused their thinking to go awry? Love of money displaced God as the master who controlled their thoughts and actions. They were thinking badly because they had loved badly. Jesus diagnosed their dilemma. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus addressed the proper use of money by telling the parable of the shrewd manager. In Jesus' day, wealthy individuals were either purchasing or seizing family farms that they then amassed into large estates. Managers ran these estates for the owners, renting land to those who paid their rent with produce like olive oil and wheat. The manager in the parable was terrible at his job. He allowed the renters to get so far behind in their payments that they were unable to catch up. When this came to the attention of the owner, he intended to fire the inept manager. In a burst of panic, the manager summoned those who owed his master money and reduced their debt substantially. He did not do it for his master's benefit, or even in a bid to save his job. His dishonest plan was meant to secure his future. When I lose my job here, he reasoned, people will welcome me into their houses. Verse 4 of our passage. Although the inept manager was still going to be terminated, the owner of the land paid homage to the shrewdness of this tactical and financial move. Jesus did not tell this parable to encourage lazy or dishonest management of personal wealth, but he urges us to replicate the manager's shrewdness in our efforts at handling our own personal wealth. We, like the Pharisees, are tempted to love money and make it our master, expecting it to be with us longer than it is and to do more for us than it can. Here, Jesus urges us to use worldly wealth that fades for eternal purposes that do not. Thank you, Mr. Beck, for that explanation, because on the surface, it does indeed sound like in his parable, the good guy is a guy who deceived, a guy who scratched the backs of people around him just so someday when he needed it in return, they would do that for him. And what Jesus is actually teaching here, according to Mr. Beck, is You've been graced with things in this life. Don't serve them. Matter of fact, in a place Jesus says you can't serve God and money. Those are two completely different masters. And if you try to serve both, you eventually end up hating one and loving the other. In this particular case, the money is being loved. The things that you can do for yourself to make your life a little easier and better are being worshiped. They're seen as the way to be happy in life. We're in this kingdom of which we are members if we have confessed Jesus as Lord, believed in our hearts he's been raised from the dead. The kingdom standard is what goes here, not the gold standard, but the kingdom standard. And it's about taking what we've been blessed with and blessing others with it. The poor, remember the story of Jesus at the temple, and Pharisees are coming, wealthy people are coming, they're dropping their bags of gold coins down the chute into the offering plate, as it were, from our understanding. And of course, when they did, they made a loud noise, and it impressed people. Wow, they're really generous. But then this woman comes up. Her spouse has died, and so she has nothing. But she offers everything she has in 2 coins that she gives. And Jesus praises her. Paul will want to take up an offering for the church in Jerusalem because it's struggling. And the Corinthian church, he's trying to encourage the Corinthian church to be generous in that. And he wants them to know that their generosity will result in people praising God. And that's how we're to live, to handle our finances, to handle our possessions in such a way that God is honored, that he's treated as the one that we worship, and we use what he's given us as a way to minister to others and to share. To share. How can you see your brother in need, have the wherewithal to help them, and not do anything about it? How does the love of God abide in you? John writes that in his first epistle. It's how we handle what we have. Whether it's a lot or a little, doesn't matter. It's how we handle what we've been trusted with. And we need to see it that way. That will reveal where our hearts are. Blessings to you today on this Tuesday.